What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 91 of the Endless Endeavor podcast. We just wrapped up our camp down in New Orleans, our Guns Gis Class 4. And, we normally do a group podcast at the end of it, but we were all fucking beat. And I remember the day that we normally do the podcast, I looked at Lapp and I said, hey, I'm not up for a podcast. And he goes, man, I didn't even think that was on the table with how we feel right now. But no, it was a fucking amazing weekend. That camp continues to grow and enrich people's lives far beyond what we ever imagined it would. And we were able to take 30 people, and there was several groups of, 2 or 3 friends, but by and large, nobody knew each other there outside of their friend or two that they came with. And man, in a matter of a weekend, it was like a family. And we're realizing the more we do this camp, the less it has to do with shooting and fighting, and the more we see how it is enriching people's lives by building community and building relationships and friendships. And man, I just think that is what is missing in today's world the most, especially if you are a person that holds more conservative values and you find yourself in one of these crazy liberal cities like Seattle or San Francisco. The isolation is real. And I have connected with a few people, and one person in particular was at the camp over the weekend. And they were like, I haven't really interacted with anyone in the last couple of years outside of negative interactions. All my interactions at work are, if you're the one conservative person in one of these fucking radical left-wing Seattle-based organizations, you're the outcast. And this person was like, I have been working throughout the whole pandemic and feeling very alone. And that is one of the things that inspired them to attend the camp outside of shooting and fighting. So I'm finding that both at Guns Gis, I'm finding it in my jiu-jitsu academy as well, is that we are able to bring people a little bit of peace and a little bit of happiness for no other reason than to put them in a social setting. Or I shouldn't say put them, I should say create a social setting that they can put themselves and interject themselves into that doesn't have all of the negative connotations attached to it with a lot of people's lives. If your life is school and work and you live in San Francisco, then there's a good chance it's going to be negativity from bell to bell all fucking day, from when you wake up until you go to bed. That's a hard place to live. I don't care how mentally strong you are. I don't care what kind of support groups you have. Like if the people that you interact with on a daily basis are giving you nothing but negativity, that's a heavy burden to bear. And that is why we are finding so much success with jiu-jitsu and Guns Gis right now. Because when you come to that environment, you're surrounded by people on the same frequency. And when I talk about the same frequency, I'm not talking necessarily politically or, like what their opinions are on current events. I'm just talking about the energy that we share as human beings. And I know it sounds like some hippie woo-woo shit, but it's not. It's absolutely not. We are set to some type of frequency, and we inevitably will interact with other people that match our frequency as opposed to people that are out of alignment with it. And jiu-jitsu attracts the same frequency more often than not. Now, we all have that person that comes through the gym and fucking immediately everybody's thinking, what's up with this guy? But when those people show up, what usually happens to them? They see themselves out. Very rarely do you have to ask someone to no longer attend your academy for whatever reason. But you find that if they aren't in alignment, they see their way out on their own. And the bigger the academy gets, the quicker they see their way out, because that energy becomes a collective. And now if you have 30 people that you don't align with, that's a lot more intimidating than if you have 1 or 2 that are out of alignment with you. And so the camp went phenomenal. It was, I would say it's probably 1/3 females this time around. And I like that. I think that builds a slightly different dynamic, but one that is, more enjoyable. More enjoyable, and it facilitates learning, because I think when you mix men and women together like that, we have to be able to take the women and make them feel like they are in a safe environment. And I said this almost verbatim during our introduction. It's like, hey, you might think I'm a sexist or a chauvinist or whatever, but this is my reality. And the women in this class have to feel a little more vulnerable to come down here and do this by themselves, and have men that they've never met literally all over them and on top of them. And you are putting yourself in a jiu-jitsu environment, which is very intimate. And so I said, I think the women that put themselves out here to do this are showing a lot of strength and courage. And because they're doing that, it is up to us, the men of this class, to really support them and be there for them and make them feel like they are in a safe environment. It is up to us to help our ladies out and look out for them throughout the duration of the training. And I'm not saying it was my speech that made the men do that. There's a good chance that the men in the class that are interested in attending something like this are probably already wired like that. But the dynamics that we saw unfold over the weekend were that of the men were taking care of the girls. And it was awesome. And I don't even mean like, oh, they were outperforming them and then they were building them up, or it had nothing to do with actual grappling or shooting. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about how they interacted with each other, how they respected each other. And they were able to just create this overwhelming, comfortable vibe with a bunch of ladies that lived all over the country that didn't know each other. And it became like a family. And I know that sounds fucking dramatic because it was 3 days, but not even in 3 days, I would say after the first full day of training, a full day on the range and a full day on the mats, everybody was like, yes. You know, when you first come in and there's that tension, like, oh, who's this person? And am I the strongest here? Am I the weakest here? Like, oh, I wonder if I'm going to get along with that person. I wonder what this person thinks of me. Like all that bullshit. Man, by the end of day one, gone. And there was a high level of comfort between everybody that attended the course as a collective. And once that was the case, to go back to why I even brought this up in the first place, once that was the case, it was like there was no egos. It was just, hey, we're all here for the same reasons and we're going to facilitate it. We're going to build each other up. And man, everybody got along and there was just no negativity. Most of the people that attended have already told me they're coming back sooner than later. And, you know, like Ron was on, a couple episodes ago telling his story about how Guns Gis just helped him feel accountable and helped light a fire in him. And so he was back last weekend again too. And Ron got all the way back to, what was that, 95 yards or something on the walk back drill. If you got farther, I'm sorry. But yeah, no, we see a lot of the same guys. Wes was back, another guy that's attended a couple camps. And it's powerful to see this idea that we had of teaching the fundamentals of grappling and shooting, which are fun and useful and build your capabilities. I foresaw that being an enjoyable experience and a cool opportunity to help people out with their shooting and their grappling. But it's grown into its own entity. It's becoming something bigger than we ever imagined. And it's enriching people's lives in a different way than we ever imagined. And I think that it's just fascinating how, man, like things like this kind of grow a life of their own. You know, we never sat down and said, hey, you know what would be cool is to have a group of people around a campfire and try and talk about how nurturing the ladies in our life is one of the most important things we can do as men. Like, no, that wasn't on our business model. But we had people sitting around the campfire last Saturday crying telling some very intimate things. And I'll be the first to tell you, we've had a couple that were very dark, very intimate, where people share some really dark things. And this last camp wasn't really the case. I think, a couple people got deep on a couple things that they needed to get off their chest, but the vibe at the campfire this time was, a lot of jiu-jitsu talk and having fun and enjoying each other's company. But I think there's a place for both, though. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying this camp kind of turned more of a positive direction than a dark direction. But I mean, just the fact that I'm talking about this, just the fact that I'm saying like we're expressing ourselves and talking about our dark past, like that is where this thing started to grow into its own entity. And people come down here and they leave changed because they feel better about themselves. They leave changed because they've been around a group of people that obviously wants to better themselves. That's the whole reason people attend that camp. It is geared towards making you a better, more capable human being through shooting and fighting. So regardless of your skill level, you can be day one, or you can be on a SWAT team and be a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Regardless of your current skill level, if you attend something like this, it's because you raised your hand and you said, hey, I want to be better at something. I want to gain knowledge. I want to gain capability. And if you do that, there's a good chance that you are going to be the type of person that aligns with all the people at the camp because you guys are on the same mission. And so, and again, I couldn't have foreseen this, but because everybody's on the same mission of getting better, man, everybody just gels. Everybody gels together and creates. I'm not kidding. We saw a lot of people saying we've created friendships this weekend that will last a lifetime. And that's just a humbling thing to hear, because this vision that we had is enriching their lives in multiple ways. And it's just fucking awesome. Building the network. I talk about that all the time. And this is now building a national network. For people that didn't serve in the military or, do a lot of traveling, one of the cool things about traveling and living in different places and traveling to attend courses or seminars such as this one, Guns Gis. One of the cool things about it is having a network of people all over the country. And I'm sure the internet has kind of changed the landscape. People have access to people in a much clearer and convenient manner. But when I was younger, like when I got out of the military, I mean, we could email, but the internet wasn't what it is today. And I had friends in almost every state. And if I needed a favor, or if I was on a road trip, or I needed a connection, like you build that through putting yourself out there and meeting people through those experiences. And we're finding that that's one of the biggest things that people are seeing beneficial about this program. And so there was so much that happened over the weekend that was just, humbling, and it was exciting. I felt all the range of positive emotions. On day one, we sit down, we circle up, and brief introduction. Say a couple things about yourself, why you're here, what you hope to get out of the program. And, that's where we start to see the first little pull the curtain back on who this person is. And you'll see some people are really nervous just to say, hey, my name's Greg Anderson. I'm from Seattle. I was in the military and then law enforcement, and I just want to build my capability. And I saw this on Instagram, and here I am. Just saying that to a group of 30 strangers is terrifying to some people. And you didn't see anyone that felt that held that kind of fear throughout the course of the program. So as we're all sitting up and we're all meeting each other and getting to know that initial little snippet of who you are, we get to a police officer, and we'll call him Chief. And he introduced himself, a lot of humility, didn't say, oh, well, my rank is this, none of that. Like, just, hey, I'm with whatever department they're with. I'm not going to say it on the air because it's almost inappropriate. If you know, you know. But one of his guys was there and he goes, just so you know, he's the chief. And we all start laughing and he takes and Lappin goes, hey, and your nickname's Chief now. Okay. And he was for the duration of the weekend. But the reason that I bring him up is that I will admit this, because when he said he was a chief, I immediately thought, nothing necessarily negative, but most of the chiefs that I have worked for or worked around, they're always playing that political game. They're not just absolutely, hey, I fucking am here to support my troops and do the right thing for them to facilitate the mission, period. Do help your people out with what they need and facilitate their mission. Take care of them, have their back if they need it. That's a chief's job. And I've yet to meet the chief that towed that line. And not that I looked at this guy in necessarily a positive or a negative light, but I just thought, I wonder how he is. And I'll tell you what, getting to know him, it almost makes me want to go back into law enforcement. And I said that to him. I said, man, after hearing a chief express ideas like this publicly and openly, you're making me want to move across the country and be a cop again. Because if you work for great people as a police officer, you're going to be okay. And you can build a work environment that isn't toxic. You know, like a lot of cops want to point the finger at media, and a lot of cops want to point the finger at the political landscape for all the problems within their department and all the problems of the public's perception of law enforcement. But I'll ask you this. Who does the buck stop with? That is your chief. Those other organizations shouldn't have the capacity to make you feel like, or I shouldn't say make you feel, but have a direct impact on your life. But because most chief of polices will kiss the ass of the mayor, now they're pulled into the political realm. Once they're pulled into the political realm, they have to abide by the pressures that the media is putting on them. And then they're just a kiss ass. Like, what are they? They're a fucking, as Dana Anderson, my dad used to say, they're just a butt boy. And think about that. Once you've kind of resigned yourself to the powers to be, now you're just at their fucking will. And that's what all the chiefs, I shouldn't say all, but you guys know what I'm saying. A lot of high-ranking people in the profession, that's why it's fucked. It's fucked because our own leadership, and I put that in parentheses, even though there's not video for this episode, our own leadership fucking puts the political needs ahead of the needs of their people. And once you do that, it's fucked and there's no recovering. You can't play both sides. You can't be both ways. It's one or the other. Do you put politics ahead of your people, or do you put your people ahead of politics? That's why we're seeing all this stupid bullshit of officers getting charged. Oh, it's time to hold them accountable. I agree. I hate shitty cops more than any fucking person listening. And I'm also the guy that will say, like, if there's a video out there that looks fucking bad, I'll say, man, that looks fucking bad. I won't just fall back to the default. Well, you don't know what happened before the video played and started. Yeah, obviously I don't. Neither do you, and neither does anybody else. And you can build whatever scenario you want in your mind, and it may or may not be true. But based on what I'm looking at right now, that looks fucked up. You can say that instead of just blindly supporting everything every cop does, because that in itself hurts the profession. But even though I'm critical, I also know the overwhelming majority are pretty good fucking people. And so I know I'm going on a rant, but this fucking chief, he told me, he goes, yeah, when they talked to me about the position, I knew that I needed to have my finances in order before I could accept the position. Because once you're in that position, you have to be willing to go out on your shield with any of your men. You have to stand so firmly behind their backs that if they're taken out, you're going out with them. And he goes, and if that's a position that I'm going to accept as chief of police, I know that comes with the territory. And I know that's my duty, is to support them to the very bitter end, even if it costs me my job. And he goes, so that's why I did a comprehensive assessment of my finances before I knew I could accept it. And I'm like, fuck, man. Is it really that shocking of a thing to say? It's a breath of fresh air, and it's rare, and it feels motivating to hear a chief of police say he stands behind his men at any and all costs. And that's an admirable, rare thing, a rare occurrence these days. Fuck. But I'll tell you what, seeing that there are good ones out there like him still, fuck, breath of fresh air. The guys that came with him were awesome. He shot well. He was excited to train on the mats. Very rarely do you see the chief leading from the front like that, getting dirty with the men. And if you're listening, one of the cadre members pointed out to me, he goes, you see Chief's holster? Thing's all scuffed up, which meant you've been out training in it and using it. It hasn't been sitting in your fucking desk for the last 10 years while you were sitting in some office getting out of touch with your men. And so a lot of leadership skills like taken in from me. And that's the most fascinating part of this, is like, I'm here as cadre and I'm learning and taking in and absorbing throughout the weekend just as much as everybody else. You know, and we had another elderly gentleman attend who's a black belt. And anybody that has a black belt knows that's a long, arduous path. And he had the most humility out of anyone there. And he goes, you know, listen, you and Greg Lappin, because he rolled with both of us and got a feel for our jiu-jitsu. He goes, your jiu-jitsu is so good. I have to attend your camp. I have to learn from you. And then obviously Joao's. I mean, come on, right? And he was pointing out me and Greg Lappin because he got a chance to roll with us. But what he may or may not realize is there's levels to this. Joao's is on the next level. But he said, he goes, I've never felt that kind of jiu-jitsu before. And as a black belt, I'm feeling a deficiency, and I need to fill that. And so to attend an introduction grappling course as a black belt, and then, and I'm not saying this in like confidential, he spoke to the entire class about this. And he was very transparent that he's like, hey, I'm a black belt too. But when I look at my game in comparison to some other black belts, I don't feel like I'm anywhere where I should be. And I need to correct this problem. And guess what? Fuck yeah. Everybody's getting behind him. Everybody likes that. That's a fucking powerful position to hold. And you just gave yourself a free pass to sit back and comfortably be a white belt for the weekend. I'm here to take it all in. And it was cool to fucking see throughout the whole thing. Some people had never shot a pistol before. And then other people were IPSC competitors. And everybody gets together and they have the same vibe, and everybody learns and everybody gets better. I'll tell you what, we probably had half the class shooting out past 60 yards on a little E-type, or it's smaller than the E-type. It's just the steel is just the C zone and in. So smaller than an E-type silhouette, shooting at 60 yards. When I was a cop, I didn't learn how to shoot until I started training with Greg Lappin. That's the truth. I remember in our department quals, because I was always very, very good on a rifle. It came natural since I was in boot camp. Even though I wasn't one of those guys that grew up hunting, shooting a rifle it was just kind of second nature. And I scored like the perfect, I think it was a 300 in boot camp, and they let me eat a piece of pizza that night because I won. But I've always been good on a rifle, just come naturally. And once I started carrying a pistol, I always thought, man, this is like a completely different thing. It's exponentially more difficult. And that was in 2004 when I went to work with Triple Canopy. You know, we had Beretta 9mm in the Ranger Regiment, but nobody ever shot them, and we didn't have any proficient training on it. I didn't learn about pistol shooting until I became a contractor. And when you go overseas, you're issued a Glock 19. So that was the first handgun that I've ever carried in a like a professional capacity outside of the Beretta, but I hated that thing. And so I started training with the guys I was deployed with. Force Recon guys, very good with pistols. SEALs, very good with pistols. I shouldn't say SEALs, DevGru. Sorry, guys. And I'm not saying the regular team guys aren't good with pistols. I'm just saying the guys that I worked with that were extremely good were a DevGru guy. And the unit guys, very good with pistol. And so I had a lot of high level training. When we lived in Ramadi, our back 40 was a range. So you could walk out the back of the hooch and fucking shoot literally whenever you want. And that DevGru guy would shoot every single night. And I fucking wish I would have taken him up on it. But we were working out, chasing chicks and doing jiu-jitsu and stuff too. So you only have so many hours. But the reason I'm telling you this is I had a lot of instruction by guys that were very good, and I never could correct just a couple little things. And it was shooting low and left, low and left, low and left. And, you know, I could shoot very well. My fundamentals of marksmanship were well because my groups were like a rat could crawl through it. So I was consistent, but I was consistently fucking up, which I guess it lets you know where your bullets are going to go, but it's not putting your bullets where they should go. I shot low and left for, 16 years. I shot low and left for 16 years. I would even bump my rear sights over dramatically to kind of compensate and try and pull my group back where it should be. And I went down, I shot with Lappin, and he looked at my grip, and he goes, you're getting frame drag right here. Okay. I don't even know what that is, but okay. And he goes, adjust your grip like this. Change my hand by half an inch maybe. And I can shoot steel at 121 yards. That's what I hit. That's what I walked back to last weekend. 121 yards. Bang. Ding. There's like this delay because it's so fucking far with a pistol. And it fucking blows my mind. It blows my mind that someone was able to look at my grip and my stance and my body positioning, watch me go through a couple mags, and just like that say, this is what you need to do. And it worked. That's what was fascinating about it. It worked almost immediately. And so when we, you know, part of our introduction, I'll always tell the class, I say, Greg Lappin's the best firearms instructor you will ever meet, period. And I'll give a little bit about, you know, who I've worked with and what kind of teams I've been a part of, just to let them know, like, I've been around the block. You know, when I was a deputy at the Marshal Service, a lot of pistol work. They were fucking carrying 40s still back then. But it was at least a Glock. But still a lot of pistol work, and I never felt I could get the rounds where I wanted them to be. And, you know, low and left from 15 in is no big deal. You can keep it all in the A zone. But once you start getting out past 25, that's where, you know, the wheels start to fall off. And so, you know, to have somebody that can just not only perform, you know, because obviously to have validity as a coach or an instructor, you have to be able to complete the task yourself. And so that's part of what he does. Every drill gets a demo. all right, guys, this is what we're going to do. On the bell, I want you to, and talks them through it. And then he goes, and it will look like this, eyes and ears. And walk them through it in real time. Walk them through it, shooting, and then do a real-time run. And that gives them a fully clear expectation of what the drill is supposed to look like. And then another thing he said, and I want half the class to divide up, and everybody is going to watch every drill. So we have an Alpha and a Bravo team. That way, only one team is shooting at a time. And the reason that is because some people are visual learners. And believe it or not, watching the right stance, body positioning, draw, watching people build those repetitions can engage your brain on how to build that repetition. And so he's very careful to engage all the three different types of auditory, visual, and kinesthetic learners to make it an experience that will apply to all those different types of learners. It's pretty fucking awesome. And I say this because I want people to know, like, what we're selling is as legit as it gets. I often joke, you got the best firearms instructor I've ever worked with. Then you have one of the best grapplers to ever exist in the universe. And then I'm there with them. So, and I don't mean to say that pejoratively. I know I'm a capable man. I have decent skills in both shooting and grappling. But when I'm up against those guys, sometimes it's kind of like, fuck, well, here we go. But no, we are going to run another camp in about, 4 weeks? Class 5 will be in 4 weeks. Then we're going to take the summer off and we're going to revamp the program. And we're going to revamp it to make it more convenient to new shooters in regards to their gear and what gun they're using, and try and streamline some things to make it an easier experience and also open it up to non-firearm owners. I think that's going to be key, because we've had a lot of people like, do I have to bring my own gun? And up until, as of all of our classes, yes, you have to bring your own gun. You're training with your equipment. But once you tell people you can only train with your equipment, that takes out a lot of people that potentially might want to learn this stuff. Because a lot of people that are kicking around the idea of becoming capable or becoming trained in shooting, they probably don't even have the faintest idea where to start. What gun do I buy? What are magazines? What belt do I use? And so we're going to revamp the program to tailor to those needs, because I think that's probably the overwhelming majority of people. If you already have all that stuff, you're probably pretty, I'm not going to say dialed in, but have a pretty good idea of shooting. And so we want this course to be available to new shooters and experienced shooters. And we think that that's going to be key. So as those details start to come out, I'll continue to put them out, but I think we're shooting for early November. So if you're interested in class 6, watch your calendar. Early November, I'll be putting stuff out on my Instagram, and that'll probably be our first class going into the fall season. And the reason we take the break is because New Orleans is just a fucking sauna in the summer, and they may be able to deal with it down there, but I'm from Seattle, and a lot of our clients are from northern latitudes. Yeah, it's latitudes. Got it. I did MGRS. I didn't do lat long, so fuck you. Yeah, we don't do well in New Orleans. Fucking miserable experience down there. So once we get our Pacific Northwest edition done, which is probably going to get built this coming summer, we'll be able to run year-round camps. And we'll focus on up here in the spring and the summer, and then we'll run the southern camps down there. And lastly, then I'll shut the fuck up about Guns and Gis. We're going to try and figure out how to take it on the road. I know I've had a couple people, I shouldn't say a couple people, I've had a fuckload of people ask if we can take it on the road to different states. And we haven't done it yet, but we're trying to figure out how to do it. There's a couple things. We need a good mat room. We need a good range, but not just like, oh, hey, you can use this public range, or you can use, like, we need full control. We need to be able to have the ability to make the calls on the range. that serve what we are doing and what we are teaching, and not go to some shooting center that's like, actually, this is a violation of our policy and you can't shoot from the supine position. Fuck you. So we need mat room, we need range, and then the most important part is we need cadre, vetted cadre. And our cadre that we have right now is fucking awesome. And we have like one cadre to every 2 students on the line. So tons of eyes for safety considerations on the range. And they're vetted, meaning they're people that Lappin has worked with for years. To go on the road and just, we can't do the event with cadre that are vouched for. Oh no, this dude's awesome. Bro, he's straight, trust me. And I'm not saying he's not, but I don't know. And so that's going to make it, that's a concern, is if we take it on the road, there's certain cadre members that are probably going to have to be with us. And now you're taking additional people. The expense of the trip just increased fucking dramatically. And so, we were going to talk about a couple different things when we were kicking around the idea of this weekend's podcast before we failed to make time for it. But man, the one thing that kind of fucking haunted us all weekend was the Cain Velasquez story. And I don't know if you guys are familiar, but Cain Velasquez, you should be familiar because he's one of the toughest men walking the face of planet Earth. But he was a UFC heavyweight champion. I don't remember, probably 5 years ago. But when he was at the top, he was one of those guys that's the king. That's the current king of the world, the heavyweight champion of the world that held that title in a dominant fashion. And when he would fight people, it was fucking terrifying because even though he was a heavyweight, he had the gas tank of Frankie Edgar, which is rare in that division. So he just turned the dial all the way to 10 and go. And heavyweights can't sustain that fucking output. And he would just beat the fuck out of people. Fascinating to see someone that powerful be able to have that kind of output. But, anyway, he was always a fucking great fighter, but he always seemed like a good human being too. And, over the years, Checkmat ended up taking over his team, AKA the jiu-jitsu side of the house, I should say. And his coach, Leandro Vieira, is actually an acquaintance of mine that I talk to every once in a while. And man, he fucking tells me, Cain's one of his black belts now. That dude's work ethic is literally second to none. Everyone that you hear talk about working out with Cain Velasquez, and I've talked to some of my other training partners, he's the hardest worker in the room, hands down. And when Marcus trained with him one time, he told me, he said, dude, this is a workout that he did. And he was there watching. He goes, it's 1 minute on an assault bike, going as hard as you can, followed by 1 minute of a fighting related movement. And he gave me a couple different examples, like a sprawl, 1-2 on the bag, sprawl, or pick up a heavy bag off the ground and like belly to back suplex it, and jump to that bag and like mount it and throw elbows for a minute, like different fighting related movements. 1 minute assault bike, 1 minute fighting related movement. 1 minute assault bike, 1 minute fighting related movement. 0 breaks, 100% effort the whole time, 30 minutes. And man, if you train and you try and fucking comprehend what kind of athlete that is, doing that for 5 minutes would fucking take most people's soul. The assault bike alone, 1 minute as hard as you can go on the assault bike, go. It's death. And to hear a heavyweight doing that, I was like, fuck, man. But that's why he was who he was. That's why he was the literal champion of the world, because not very fucking many people, if any, can do that. So now that you know who Cain Velasquez is, fucking tragic occurrence last weekend. Through some term of events that I have no idea, and I don't even know if they're public, he figured out that his young child was being molested at daycare. And this is all on various public news channels and stuff. And if they got the story wrong, they got the story wrong. But I'm repeating what I've read on various news channels. So, however they determined that this guy was molesting the kids at the daycare was obviously valid because he got arrested and the DA is fucking charging him. But when he went to his arraignment, the judge said, we're going to let this person out on bail. I think they put him in a halfway house. And anyone that has ever served in any type of law enforcement capacity knows what a halfway house is. It's a house out in town. And they don't have any fucking security or any fences. It is not in custody. A halfway house is basically being out on bail. You know, we would get escape warrants all the time. When I was a deputy with the Marshal Service, he escaped. And it's like, oh, man, I'm thinking fucking some Shawshank Redemption shit, right? And then you find out, no, he just got in a car and didn't come back because he's in a halfway house. And so this monster that molested his 4-year-old child on what the news said up to 100 different occasions. I don't know where they got that number. I don't know how you would put that together, but that's what the story read. Up to 100 different occasions. And they let him out. They just let him out. So what do we do as parents? If there's a monster out there that's attacked your child over and over and over, you bring it up to the authorities. They agree that took place for however they came to that conclusion. I'm sure they did some type of investigation. They arrest him, and then they say, you know what, we're going to let him out for now. We'll figure it out. He'll have his day in court. And that monster that's been attacking your family is now free. I talked about this on the American Insurgent episode. They're legislating you into criminals, meaning, just like Washington, you can't have over 10 bullets in your magazine now. Yeah, okay. I'll get right on that. Let me pull 7 bullets out of my magazine if I'm carrying my Glock 19X. Just to be in compliance. Like, get the fuck out of here. I can have as many bullets as I want to protect my family. And if that offends you and you don't fucking like it, like I always say, fucking do something about it. If you're the cop that wants to cite or arrest someone for being out of compliance on how many bullets they can have in their magazine, while your duty rifle inside your patrol car holds 30, fuck, you can have a drum if you want to. And if you can have whatever you want, but you have a problem with your citizens having whatever they want, you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. But my point in going off on that is they want to legislate us all into being criminals. They want to take our rights away. And then when we say, yeah, you know what? This doesn't make any sense. Boom, you're in trouble now. Even though the exact same behavior last year wouldn't get you in any trouble. And so I'm seeing a parallel. I'm seeing a parallel with the Cain story because you have a good man who's never done anything wrong. Everybody you've ever heard talk about him says he has a heart of gold. Your incompetence fails him to a level where he has to take matters into his own hands. And so as the guy's dad picked him up and started driving him back home, presumably, Cain followed him and shot into the car, trying to kill this guy. And why is that surprising to anybody? You think if I found out someone molested my kid over 100 times and I went the right route, went to the authorities, hey, look, this is what happened. Yeah, okay, we got you. And now they're like, oh, you know what? We're actually going to put that guy back out into the community. If that happens, how can you be surprised when the father says, okay, well, now we're going to go plan B because you guys fucked me on plan A. And that's just what the government does now. They just fuck you. Every little aspect of your life, you're getting fucked. And now Cain's sitting in jail, awaiting attempted murder charges, even though he didn't kill the guy, or I should say attempted. He didn't even hit the guy. The guy's dad took a bullet to the arm. And people are like, oh, well, you know, he shot the wrong guy. Shouldn't that mean something? I think it should fucking mean something to the judge. That's what I think. I'm sick of these fucking judges that just allow criminals to be criminals and then they hammer people, normal people, when they finally have had enough and stick up for themselves. I'm fucking sick of it. So my advice to Kane, invoke your constitutional right to a speedy public trial and be tried by a jury of your peers and get a good ass fucking attorney. Because I think Cain Velasquez will walk. That's my prediction. I think he's going to walk. But it's it's nothing new. Seeing the direction the world's going. And our politicians are continuing to fail us on every level, both nationally with the last story I just told, but here we are again on the eve of war. And as soon as the fucking media says, hey, Ukraine good, Russia bad, and we're going to support them and we might be going to war, it seems like people are down with that. Everybody's just down with that because CNN says so, even though those motherfuckers lied to you for years. And the other interesting fact about this fucking Ukraine thing is, as soon as there's the potential for war, it seems like COVID literally disappeared, just gone. Nobody cares anymore. In a fucking week, it went from, the fucking winter of death is coming to crickets. And that alone should be alarming to people. If you can't fucking see that the media and our politicians are manipulating you to think a certain way and manipulating you to behave a certain way, you're fucking blind. You're fucking blind. And I don't even know if it can be helped. Like, I think those people are just vibrating on such a low level. They're just so gullible because they're so miserable and they're just grasping at anything and everything that they'll fucking just get sucked into their television and be programmed. And those are the people that are swaying our elections. It's fucking scary to think about. If it wasn't, in fact, stolen, which, come on. I mean, last week's episode was Ivory Hecker, and she said she witnessed election fraud firsthand, and Fox would not let her discuss it on the air. Shocking. But yeah, it's just a crazy place that this is where we're at, and we move back towards a war footing, and all these motherfuckers just seem to be okay with it. How many more wars do we have to fight before we start to say, you know what? Let's stop meddling in everybody else's business. If I hear an American politician say one more fucking time that we're going to go to war to uphold peace and liberty and democracy, I'm going to fucking slap them. I love those things as much as the next person. But I think we got a big fucking problem with our own right here at home. You want to talk about fucking democracy and peace? You got a lot of cleaning up to do in your own fucking yard first, in your own fucking house. And the fact that they're shitting all over peace and democracy here at home lets you know that it is not a value that they hold close and dear to their heart. They don't give a fuck about it. So not only are they saying it for parts of the world that hold no value to us as Americans, but they don't even believe it either. And when you hear me say that, guys, like we shouldn't help them because it doesn't add any value to America. Like, I'm not taking the humanity out of it at all. I've seen war. And it sucks. And it's shitty. And it's fucking sad. But it's very similar to a relationship. You can't be good for other people until you're good in yourself. You can't be good to your partner for your partner unless you're good for yourself. And that's a very important thing. And I think it's important for America to realize that too. If we want to help the rest of the planet and we want to help other human beings throughout this planet fucking prosper and find peace and do find a democracy or a style of government that can fit their needs. If we want to assist other humans with that, well, we need to have it figured out at home first. And we fucking don't anymore. I think there was a time that we did. We fucking don't anymore. So will we spread ourselves too thin all across the fucking earth, trying to fucking stamp out every fire and trying to fucking protect every nation at the cost of billions of dollars and countless lives? Well, we do that continuously, putting fucking money in the pocket of all these motherfuckers that are getting rich off of our backs. If we're going to continue to fucking do that, then we're going to do it at the expense of our own country. Because as we do that, it's falling apart right here. And until we're good here, I say it's time to pull all that bullshit back. Focus on getting us strong again. Focus on our people. Focus on our economy. And then once we're in a good spot, yeah, fuck yeah. We can help other people if they need it. I'm not talking about going and overthrowing a fucking dictator because Hillary Clinton wants us to. I'm talking about if there's egregious ass shit going on that's violating people's human rights. Yeah, fuck yeah, I'm down to help them. But you're violating our human rights right here. And we're going to have to address that first. And you motherfuckers don't think we're going to. But it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. It's actually fascinating to think about. I just don't know when. And that's the age-old question. Is this next weekend? Or is this when I'm an 85-year-old man? Don't know yet. But if you think that it won't happen at some point, you're fucking out of touch with reality. We went from 2 weeks to flatten the curve to 2 years of being flattened by Clydesdales. And most of you motherfuckers are still okay with that. There's not outrage that fucking piece of shit on the horse isn't sitting in a jail cell. Nobody cares. No one's saying a thing. But a year ago, if a cop flattened a black lady on a horse, our fucking cities would be burning. And it's because all you motherfuckers are just programmed by your television. And you get outraged by what they tell you to be outraged about. And you support what they tell you to support. And they can fucking change your perspectives from one day to the next. And it's like you motherfuckers forgot yesterday. You know, all the COVID shit, yeah, they're wrong about all. It's okay. Well, it took time. Pfizer's trying to hide all its shit. It goes public. You can read it. Page 1. It's already talking about the adverse effects. There's thousands of them. I was just some dumb cop who didn't want to get vaccinated. All you fucking morons on Instagram writing me, telling me how stupid of an anti-vaxxer I am. When I wasn't any of those things. I was just a guy that felt something was a little off and something felt a little corrupt. And I didn't want to be part of it. I still don't want to be part of it. But they're going to force us to be part of it because they won't fucking stop until we are part of it. But I'm here to tell you, once you make me a fucking part of it, it's not going to go the way that they think. It is not going to go the way that they think. All right, guys. Nice, quick 56-minute episode. I'll wrap this up. And we'll be back next week with Tobin Folk talking about the leadership failure of our country. All right, guys. We'll see you next time.